What's up?
What's up, man?
Beer's almost empty. So yeah,
Crime against humanity.
I had to hurry up and hit record because we started talking, and it's like good conversation. I was like, wait, save that. That's good stuff. My big question this week was not necessarily how were the Great Pyramids built, but like just the basics. How in the hell did they get these big stones into these perfect, symmetrical spaces, shapes? Some of the stone is different. The granite and things had to travel 500 miles.
Right. Yeah.
I saw so many different theories on this, and I can't make heads or tails of it. There's theories that we were just saying this, that there was where a chariot full of aliens came down and graced us with knowledge. You posed a good one that different periods in our history where there's been major catastrophes and things.
Yeah, civilization rises up, gains a certain level of knowledge, and then they're knocked back down to just, you don't have time to do anything but survive, gather food, stay alive. And then as things become progressed and you have a little more free time, now you can kind of think about, technologies and things.
You lose all those stone tablets that had all of the factual information. Your library's gone. What are you going to do?
Right.
It makes me think of there's another theory out there. Gosh, I can't remember the guy's name. He worked for NASA in the 70s, and he theorized that one day we keep putting all these satellites and things into orbit, and we launch a rocket. It drops pieces into space that stay in orbit, and today it's an issue.
Oh, yeah.
And his theory was at some point, your satellites aren't going to work. They're going to get ruined or wrecked by your own pieces of garbage from your other satellites and rockets.
Right.
And
Space junk.
Gosh, I can't remember his name. I'll have to look that up. But they said there's 47,000 recorded and known pieces of useless items floating in our atmosphere.
Wow.
Useless.
Any one of those crashing into another creates now 100 pieces or 1,000 pieces.
Imagine a small bolt and nut from, just anything, just something household, just very small, size of your thumbnail, could take out a space shuttle mission.
Sure.
Could take out a satellite.
Traveling at whatever, 17,000 miles an hour, 30,000 miles an hour. Go right through it.
It's crazy to think about that.
Yeah.
So,
not to mention all the other space particles, little grains of sand or, bigger, that's
from
already
something that hit a surface of a planet or a moon or a star and broke off into space too.
Sure.
Yeah. So then you have the a lot of this goes back to, like I'm saying, the pyramids and stuff, and the writings, the hieroglyphs. It was a place where things were recorded. Even in caves, they talk about, the paintings showed scenery, conveyed, hunting a large beast, a mammoth, or, other cave groups or whatever. How do they gain the knowledge? How do they record the knowledge? How do they, then share it? And I think it just, for me, it was just like, how do they even just know how to make these blocks? Let's just keep it that basic. They made a block, and then they moved it a great distance. And then once they got it that distance, how the hell did you hoist it and continue? And I'm like, wow. So then and then I'm in the rabbit hole. So then I'm in the Easter Island. So I wanted to show you this.
All right.
These guys, this is only a couple minutes.
You stand straight up. But most of the moai lying on the road have angled bases. And Carl and Terry believe that angle had a very specific purpose.
I can edit a lot of this out.
Road moai has to be shaped in a way that can be transported. They did it by shaping their base so they leaned forward to enable them to walk.
This is a great example of the forward lean of these transport moai.
So if you took this statue and we could put it back up, it would be leaning really far forward. It means that as you rock it side to side, it falls forward across that front edge and takes a step. Without that, it would just rock back and forth and not really go anywhere.
And walking really describes what these moai did.
To test their theory, in
Watch
2012, Carl and Terry built a model of a moai out of concrete, carefully mixed to match the fragile density of the ancient statue's volcanic rock, and made it walk.
In our experiments, we found it took remarkably few people to move the statue.
Can't
We were
deny
terrible
that's-
at it. You know, we were the
That's
least
working
expert
there.
of
That's
any people
working.
who've ever moved a moai in the world. But we were able to do a 5-ton statue with 18 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah. And there was a theory for a long time that because they were buried, you can only saw a lot of them from their shoulders up. But there were some that were across fields, and they had them all across this island. And there were some that had like these large, sort of divoted, almost like a ditch behind them. And they couldn't figure out what that was. And that could very well be just from the rocking.
Right.
They just figured out, you know.
I did see something else on there where yeah, they had a bigger base to that. Like maybe that was twice as tall as what they showed there.
Exactly.
And they took it to a hole. They dug a hole, and then they kind of had a ramp that it fell into, and then they stood it up, and then they buried the base of it, and then the rest you didn't have to worry about it tipping over or whatever. But it's amazing that you know, it's, again, you had to be in a place where you didn't have to worry about surviving each and every day. You had a food supply and enough people that you can dedicate time to even build these things, let alone move them into place and move them 100 miles or wherever, you know.
And he said they carefully tried to copy one of the statues with the one that they were using, and it was 18 people with ropes. So you figure, you know, you got an island full of people, and you only got 18. That's their job. We're gonna make. What are you doing? Well, we're the guys making the monuments. Okay,
Right.
So it it made a lot of practical sense to me. What still has me baffled though is when I go into I mean, obviously I'm using the internet. I feel like I should go to the library and look for some books and stuff, but all the different theories on how they move these stones. And I've heard so many different things. One of them that's sort of recurring is the use of water, mud, sticks that would, so you could make like a bed of boards that things could roll across. And I've done that where you put something down, you start to roll it, you hurry up and take it out of the back, come back around the front, throw it in front.
Sure.
You know, team effort thing.
I heard that same thing, but somebody debunked that with at least the larger blocks that are so heavy, they wouldn't have had enough wood or with the right composition. It would have just crushed it or pushed it into the sand. Like there's that doesn't explain how they can move a 60-ton rock that's, you know, 60 feet long and 12 feet high and, you know, tremendous.
So these guys, because that was debunked, they found in the hieroglyphs somewhere that we'll turn this one down. So they're showing the 2.5 ton stones. They're showing like a sled almost.
So 2.5 tons, 5,000 pounds.
Yeah, showing like a sled almost. And it can't just be that they put 100 people in front of it with ropes. There had to be something under it, you know, to give it a way to move.
So they're showing.
Well, they continue though. They go from that theory, and they go into the use of water, where this guy would ride that sled and keep watering, and it would cause little bubbles and ways for it to slide. Right. Well, then they went even further and they said, well, we're looking at these hieroglyphs here, and they built a waterway and figured out a way to float some of these stones. But that still doesn't make a lot of sense to me, because I'm like, well, wait a minute. Okay, I understand you could float something across water easier. And they are showing old writings and different things, but it just doesn't add up just to be enough to make sense.
I'm not sure the displacement's there for floating a stone like that.
Even if you did, let's just say you did, how are you going to get it out?
That's fine. Yeah, you can maybe get it there.
Right.
And they would have to, you know, they're showing ramps built up. So they'd have to have the technology to build ramps bigger than the pyramid that they're going to build.
Yes.
Out of something that wouldn't get crushed by the weight of these things. Build that first just to move the blocks. Well,
Right.
How did they do that?
Right. So then you got this guy. He's showing some different things. He's pulling a sled with a rope. It's making a lot of sense, but I just don't see it being like look, they have to use
they're using a mechanical force, right?
equipment. They can't do it. They can't do it. So
and that's a small stone.
So I'm thinking, yeah, it's a method, but I'm still skeptical on this whole water thing. Like they got this thing just floating perfectly in place, and then you pull away the flotation. Now you got this thing sitting here. What are you gonna do?
Okay,
that's what I'm saying.
So you saying the water level was high enough to the top of the pyramid?
I don't know. I believe mud could be something,
I think they're reaching
to it, but
it barely gives a plausible explanation for getting it there, but to get it lifted. And then inside the King's Chamber, they talk about a 60-ton stone that is elevated above an open space. It's above a pit. It's locked into a place with nothing underneath it.
So the other theory, the only one that makes sense to me, is a series of ramps around your central structure that you continue to build out or build on top of those ramps.
Mm-hmm.
So that would, let's say if your ramp was like at a 40, 45 degree angle, it couldn't be a 45. It couldn't be that hard of an angle, but.
Oh, the ramp would have to be 10 miles long to be gradual
enough.
But
let's just say it was a slight angle. I could see that you could figure out a way to slide some things up. So I have a lot of skepticism, and I still have a lot of wonder, and there's so many theories about how they did this. And then the other part of it is, so let's move beyond the basic stone, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now they've made these, or the block, I said. So, so you made a block, you figured out a way to move the block. You figured out a way to stack the block. You made a shape with the block that has chambers in it, causeways, whatever.
How do you even cut the stones?
But how did you make them? Right. But let's go a little further beyond that.
Okay.
How did you line all these up perfectly so that you would know when there's eclipses and things like that with stars and all that? So now there's even more advanced stuff going on.
And each side is perfectly symmetrical within a half a degree or 1 degree, and it's aligned north, south, east, west. If you make one small error at the base, by the time you get to the top,
it's ruined.
It's like a 1 inch here. When you get down there, it's a foot. Yeah. So
you had, gosh, I said his name and now I forgot the first ruler, but it was his architect that came up.
Ramsey
that came up with all of that for the stones and everything, for the shapes, the layouts, everything. But after that dynasty was over, then came all these different things added in. There were cemeteries, there were smaller pyramids, little tribute areas and things like that. There's also proof out there like the Sphinx is a much larger structure than what anybody's ever been able to see or find or figure out, and it's much older and all this different stuff. So you have so much mystery. Such a road you could go down there. So many different ways that people have figured this out after the fact in their own ways. Like here they're using levers. And it's still, again, how are you getting this in place before you can even do that, So it makes sense now. If you're looking at it now and you figure out a way, you could wrap something around something that's 2 or 3 tons and move it now, right? You could figure it out now. But I just don't think you're answering what really went down back then. So then you go on the other side of the world and you go over to Stonehenge. And that's another one that's mysterious because it's these long stones, tall stones with other stones on top of them stacked. And they came up with a really neat way to answer it with rope.
Mm-hmm. And a pit.
And it worked. It worked. So I can totally believe that and see that. And it's so rudimentary, but yet it's laid out in a place that has to do with the stars and things like that. It was more or less for a farming calendar kind of thing. I think that's what they said the use of it was later. They could look through, see where the sun was, and know they still had so many weeks left or whatever to plant and things like that. Was a theory.
It's a big, and long process to build a calendar, but I suppose that's your life back then.
Yeah, but I guess also that there was more than one in the world. You know, over time, obviously they've been knocked over. Like kids just walk by, I knocked that thing over. But here's what's really cool. Here's somebody, this guy in Michigan, Wally Wallington.
Okay,
this is back in 2000.
All right,
this guy, he figured out ways with no devices, only wood, some rope, and stones, and he figured out a way to move great amounts of weight. And when I show you this, you might have seen it already before. It's been around for a long time. He has a goal at the end. He wants to raise something vertical on his own. So you'll see how he does it. But through the course of this video, it's pretty amazing because he shows you something he developed. There's 300-pound stone. Shows you something else. That's 1,600 pounds. Shows you something else. He moved a fucking pole barn for his kid by himself.
Wow.
With his, setup or whatever. And it's like, it's not, and what's amazing is, it's one of those things where you look at, you never fix something where you just go, I'm going to eyeball this, and it works. I feel like that's what this guy does.
Got lucky.
But check this out, man.
All right.
This is amazing.
Well, that
it wasn't necessarily an alien came and gave somebody knowledge, that somebody figured something out.
Sure.
And you nailed it. There was a great calamity, loss, whatever, and no way to record the knowledge.
Mm-hmm. Or it was recorded and it's lost. It hasn't been found. It's been buried under sediment, ash, whatever. That explains maybe Stonehenge or the Easter Island, but not the pyramids.
It still gave me a little bit of understanding of how even they could have figured a way to move some things to the work site at least. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to mention that it was Khufu.
Okay.
The Great Pyramid of Giza was built during the reign of Khufu. The blocks were about 2.5 tons. So what do you got? 5,000 pounds, right?
Right.
Yeah. So like I said, moving them, mud makes sense, clay makes sense, some type of sled makes sense. If they had camels or horses or even elephants, probably is my guess, something like that. It still doesn't tell me how the hell you got them up
and
this.
How you stacked them.
Yeah.
And stacked them perfectly.
The ramp, like you said, is like, geez, you'd have to have 500 feet just to get to the right angle, just to start the first slope. Mm-hmm. And then what's the ramp made out of?
Right. That doesn't get crushed.
Who thinks they want something like this, and then who puts it to work? They said it was his architect or whatever, and it's like, well, who even has an architect? Like you're a ruler. It's like, I need an architect. I need something of everything,
And I mean, it shows my ignorance about how many actual pyramids there are, but to do this and nail it the first time or the first 3 times here, or are there other pyramids that were started and then not finished because we didn't get that right? Let's abandon that. Let's start again. Are there examples around the world of half-built or quarter-built pyramids that we messed up?
Well,
how do you get it right?
You had a lot of that. So go down to Mexico with the Mayans. The Mayans had things they figured out, and the Mayan people were completely wiped out, gone. Mm-hmm. How did they do some of those things?
Gobekli Tepe and Gobekli Tepe.
Yeah.
Another amazing site. I mean, they got some of those in the one in you're just describing. I forget the name of the place, but they have perfectly drilled holes or shapes recessed into this very hard stone. How do they have the precision, the tools to do that? They say that nowadays with diamond drills and all that, they couldn't make the progress. It would be so slow and arduous. And of course, I mean, they didn't have mechanical stuff that we know of. That, you know, back then to be able to make those perfectly shapes, and some of those stones are not even, they're like 90-degree corners sitting on top of another one, and you can't even put a piece of paper in between. They're so perfectly aligned.
It is just something that I don't know. I've always been enamored with the whole thing. And then, you know, I was joking around about Indiana Jones earlier, and they use pieces of historical things and they put them in the movies. They put them in the video games. You don't even realize that that's some factual things that you're hearing in these fictional events or whatever. And then you go, wait a minute, I think I read about that. And then you look it up. It's like, holy crap, they're using the real stuff. You know, now they're adding their spin on it or whatever. But I'll say it again. I've heard that there was they had the chariot, which was the UFO, which came down, and they blessed that knowledge to human beings to do some things. There's also hieroglyphs of staffs that emit light. It's not a fire. It's like a light bulb, but because it had a wire connected to something.
Okay.
And let's just call it a cave writing, whatever you want to call a hieroglyph, where they're writing on the insides of the pyramids and other places that they found this. So was it just somebody with an imagination? Is it supposed to be a waterway? There's other people that say, no, this was something of an alien doing.
Some technology.
But why would they gift it to us and then not come back? Did we abuse that?
Did the aliens give the knowledge to it? Did they actually help build it? Was it built with sonic resonance? Was it built with vibrations? Was it, there's so many theories.
Yeah.
And then you get down, okay, after it's built and you figure out how they were cut and transported and built, what was it used for? They never found, people, when I was in school, we were taught that those were the pharaoh's tombs. They never found mummies in those. Now, did somebody, 2,000 years ago take it out, or 1,000 years ago take it out? Maybe. But there's no evidence that it was used as a tomb, that it was used for some other purpose.
Like a chamber for a way to harvest the energy.
Yeah.
Like we have a gas tank, so to speak, or a fuel cell for a battery. Maybe that's what the pyramid was.
Maybe.
And it emitted something out of the tip of it.
Who knows?
That you could tap into.
Mm-hmm.
I mean...
or harvesting something.
There's human beings through time, just like this guy in Flint, Michigan, who just eyeball it. And they don't maybe understand what they're tapping into. Another person that was a genius that did some of that was Nikola Tesla.
Right.
He was working on wireless power, transferring power wirelessly, and mysteriously gets no more research and no more money and shut down, and the mystery around his death and all this. And it's like that could have been something.
We start messing with
Egyptian nature.
Start messing with people's money streams. They don't tend to like that.
No,
if you want to give power for free, but yet this guy wants to charge you for the power, maybe you don't get to do that.
Right. It's a lot to be said about the power of air, sun, wind, sun, water with hydrogen, things like that. Mm-hmm. There's been people over the years that have taken a regular fuel run automobile, played with it somehow, figured out a way to make it run on different things. Those cars never see the light of day.
Yeah. Well, either they something mysteriously happens to the person and all that information goes bye-bye, or they get bought out for a hefty sum. NDA, I own the rights. You can't talk about this ever, and go away.
Right. I know there was talk of separating the elements of water to get hydrogen to make hydrogen-powered cars, or have some type of fuel cell that would hardly ever need to be replenished. And that stuff was actively being researched and utilized.
Mm-hmm.
I can still remember adverts from Honda of a near zero emission exhaust with just droplets of water, and they were using hydrogen cells. And then now we're not talking about that now.
Yeah, big oil doesn't like that.
No. And you had the issue, what was it in the batteries? Was it not lithium, but something that they needed to, some type of ore they needed to mine, and now all of a sudden we've hit on this huge pocket of it, and suddenly battery cars are all in fashion, and it's like,
yeah, how do you charge them all though?
Yeah.
Is the grid going to be able to sustain
I
that
told
many?
I told a guy that had a battery powered truck. I was like, that's great, get the battery powered truck, but I work for a coal-fired energy producing company, and you still need us to charge that bad boy up until we can figure out.
You get to feel good on the backside, right? Well, I'm not doing it. Somebody else is doing it to burn, to get me the electricity. All I'm doing is electricity. That's clean.
I could say,
wipe my hands.
I mean, the one thing I could say is, if you were about to run out of something, then yeah, try to find an alternative, because you're going to be out of it.
Sure.
The other side of it is, with what I've seen in the industry I'm in, is the equipment wears out really fast. It doesn't last very long. And you're talking a few decades, and those decades are enough time for different political entities getting involved, and those having the business ties. Like you said, yeah, we're not going to do that anymore because we want this over here. So it's like, it's kind of like something's needed, but if you just would have taken care of this, maybe it might run better, but now it's too late and we're getting rid of it. So I don't know. It's not up to me to make those calls. I can just say, from my experience, I wonder sometimes, like, well, why wouldn't you have just tried to continue this technology to clean it up or get it to be more efficient? And it's hamstrung, its hands are tied now, and the big money gets involved, like you said. But
well, the oil guys don't really like the EV stuff coming in, and so they'll demonize that.
Sure.
And then the green electric guys that are going to make a ton of money off that will have to demonize the oil and the coal. I mean, coal's dirty, but it's efficient. It's been used that way for a long time, and the electricity comes from, like you say, wind turbines. Okay, great. That sounds like a great idea until you think of what it cost and all the emissions and everything put into just building one of them, and then they don't last. And then now what do you do with them when they break down? Put them in a landfill?
No.
That's not very green.
No. But it's like, I think, we touched on this before in last week's episode when we were talking about things from the mind and the research, and where maybe a secret is found in that, right? I think we're kind of talking about the same thing here. Even with going from talking about moving blocks with the pyramid to motorized vehicles and stuff, like energy needs to be used in there somewhere, right? So we were talking about research to use the mind to do certain things, and I had said someone at some point is going to forget about the good of mankind, and they're either going to weaponize or incentivize. They're either going to find a way to take out an enemy or make money. And then anybody else with any other idea or theory that gets in the way of that's going to get squashed and stopped. And that's the sad part. It's like, it's people call it like the they, them. There's so many different things. They'll say it's the government. They'll say it's the Illuminati. They'll say it's something, but it's always that little, not little, but that pocket or that group of that super elite, super rich that are so beyond anything we could ever comprehend. And they just have all the people to pull all the little strings, you know? And it's like, no, we don't want to do that. Maybe next year, you know? That's sad. And it all goes back to how these guys move these blocks. So you have all this other conspiracy, and some of it could probably be followed and be found out to be true. And then you go back and you go, well, how did they get the knowledge? And where did that knowledge go? And it's like, over time, you had the treasure hunters, and governments get involved. Now they had, for probably 40 years, they had one guy they put in charge of archaeology in Egypt alone over the pyramids. And you couldn't go do any exploration unless you went through him. Well, why? Why was it up to him? And he would stop everybody. They showed, I watched footage of him get physically so pissed off that he was ready to just fight everybody, to throw them out. He did not want them going down a certain chamber that they had found, and it was new. They were still finding new chambers as recent as, like, what was it, 2021 or something? They found a new chamber. And they had found, previously, they found this little, like, 12 or 14-inch piece missing in a wall or something, and they moved some debris, and it was a tunnel. So they put a camera on a little RC type vehicle thing, right, and they drive it in, and it goes in, and it starts to rise at a certain angle, and it's a weird angle. It's like 41 degrees or something, and then all of a sudden it stopped, and then it went up even harder angle, and then it went up for a while, and then it went straight up, and then it goes into something, another chamber, and before they could take anything in there to find out, that's when that guy came through. Gosh, I can't remember his name. He's super famous. Super famous for this stuff anyway. He put the brakes on all of it. It's like, well, why are you stopping from finding out? Like, it's like you just said, they don't even have bodies in the tombs.
Right.
We found a couple pharaohs in the gold and all that in the burial things, and that was it. What the heck is the use of this? Mm-hmm. Why is it material that's 500 miles away brought here to use in this very specific way? It could be as simple as we dug a hole, we needed a support system, we built the support system, and as we built up on top of it, because it would be easier to bring a stone up like this guy did. That's down there, we just remove material and stand it up and continue. But then you get so far, again, now the questions start. All right, that worked for the first row.
Yeah.
Now what? So
okay, yeah, you built it 30, 40, 50, 60 feet, 100 feet high. How'd you build it 280 feet high? Yeah. How'd you get to the top?
Yeah.
How'd you get that last one?
There was a time in history when people were allowed to go up on top of the flat parts of the pyramids and have lunch and have tea and just hang out.
Yeah.
And now you can't even touch them. And I didn't know that they had been coated with like a white sandstone material, almost like a paint.
Yeah, it looks really rough nowadays.
Yeah.
But they said that it used to be all smooth.
And they took that off to use for building material in other projects after wars and things like that, which is wild to me that you would go take something from like your treasured one thing in your country that's like this great mystery. Like, hey, let's just go pull the top couple layers off of that and use it over here.
Right.
It kind of blows me away. But I guess as time goes on, humanity's going to do that eventually. You know, you're always going to have, like, that's what archaeology is. You know, they go out and they dig in these places and they dig down 3 feet and they find the remnants of another layer of life.
Yeah.
You know,
just keeps being built or reused, repurposed. Yeah. Yeah. It's easier than going to go mine your own stones from 500 miles away.
Yeah. Yeah. So I want to know what people think, if it was aliens or if guys figured some things out. And the reason,
let us know your theories.
And the reason we don't know what continued is because as time went on, you know, it's probably greed, control, power grabs. just wanted to keep people from the knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
If you keep people in the dark, then they don't really know what's going on or how to.
Well, a lot of people have
things.
vested interest in their own story, their own identity. You know, they don't want to be proven wrong if they've been saying this. There's no consensus on even how old they are. You know, the common theory was 4,000 or 5,000 years ago they're built, but there's a prevailing theory that they're at least twice or three times as old as that, and maybe even 20 or 30,000 years old.
And that the Sphinx was bigger than anybody could imagine. That you could, it's like too much Earth's around it. That's like caved
that it was
in.
repurposed and reshaped later on.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It wasn't. It was a lion or something. It wasn't the pharaoh's head. Something to that effect.
Or I seen one that it was like a wolf or a dog face. Like it showed an outline of what it could have been, and then it was repurposed down into other things along the way.
What's the purpose of that and where it is? And at one time, it wasn't all desert. It was lush.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rivers had floods. Everything kind of comes back, and then it's not as wet as it needs to be. So it becomes this
Randall
desert.
Carlson is a big into that, and they what's the other guy's name? He's got a show, Ancient Apocalypse. I think he does a great deep dive on all that ancient history and gives an alternative theory about the longer timeline, 20, 30,000 years ago.
That's been in recent years that they've been proving, there's ways to date stones and things like that. And they're like, wait a minute, this thing's 20,000 years old. It's not
they can't
2,000.
carbon date stone itself, but the material matter that might be inside that's placed in there that couldn't have got in unless it was there when it was being built. And if they dig out some of the, fibers or plant material, they can carbon date that and kind of get an approximate. Yeah.
Right. And then they'll see that they were actually rolling the stones over the body of slaves. And
DNA.
Crushing the humans as lubricant to get get the stones up there.
Yeah. So you just had like a million people in way to next crew,
we
lay
need
down.
5 more.
Yeah.
Each stone, we need 25 people.
Right. Okay.
You just lay down for the pharaoh.
Mm-hmm. All you would do is become paste in the sand.
Yes.
You're not helping anything. I mean, even though the wood that they might have used, logs, trees, the weight of some of those would just be ground down.
Yeah.
Who knows? It's very interesting, fascinating. There's tons of theories. We'd like to hear people's their own theories on it.
Just call us on the hotline at 219-809-2489 and give us one of your creepiest stories, a tale, something that happened to you in your life that seems supernatural that you want to share. And we're going to pick the best one, and then we're going to put it on the podcast. And as always, I'm Brett, and that's Jeff. Thanks so much for listening. Everything's been getting more listens every week, more views every week. We really appreciate you guys for that. So
thank you.
Keep doing that, and fight the fear. We'll see you guys next time.
We'll see you.
Hello, motherfucker.
I didn't say our stuff.
Bullshit.
There we go.
Bullshit.
What?
A bullshit. A bullshit. A bullshit. A bullshit.
Yeah. Later.
All right.